The response from this event was really overwhelming, as everyone left the event bowled over by David's theory. My thanks to David again for such a candid interview. Next up was something completely different, as we moved to the life of Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. Discussing the controversial life of one of the greatest rulers England has ever had was Alison Weir, the best-selling female historian in the UK, who has recreated the lives of medieval women in all her novels. However, the focus was firmly on Elizabeth tonight and how she consciously aimed to preserve her status as the Virgin Queen, despite the frequent attempts of ambassadors and princes to woo her. As she signed books after the event, I swung by to chat with Alison. Alison, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and congratulations on a riveting tour.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
How do you find it? Yeah, did you enjoy it?
I love it. I love doing that because there's a passion for history, and Elizabeth is a fascinating character, and she's a dynamic character, and to be able to bring her alive through reading out her own quotes and her letters and just talking about her generally, I find it, it's always a thrill every time because it's a new audience, and I've done that talk many times.
Really?
The book came out in 1998, and that's how old the talk is, but I haven't done it a lot in recent years, obviously. I do it from time to time because people always want to know about Elizabeth.
Yeah, sure.
And she features in a lot of my books, so yes, it was great fun.
So how much did Elizabeth play on the role of the status of the Virgin Queen?
Very much so, because it also protected her from having to marry, and it also replaced in her subject's mind a female deity like the Virgin Mary, and I think she was very aware of this. That's why we get the Queen portrayed almost as a goddess, in that I think she consciously filled that niche.
I mean, how revolutionary was it back then to declare?
It was unnatural for a woman to reject marriage. I mean, I thought it was just maidenly modesty, but it wasn't. In her case, it was far more than that. But no, it was thought that a woman had no identity but through her husband. And a woman on her own was almost an aberration of nature.
I mean, but how strong was the evidence there to suggest that she did see other men, that she indeed wasn't the Queen?
There's no actual evidence that she, not evidence that anyone would believe, apart from the gossip. I read out some of the gossip. There's no evidence that she actually did go all the way with any of her suitors, and that got pretty close to it, I think.
Yeah.
But I just think there was this psychological block against marriage and all that it entailed. And don't forget, she's a bastard, a heretic, and a usurper in the eyes of Catholic Europe. Had she born a bastard, my God, what would have happened to her? I mean, she didn't dare risk it. Her reputation would have been in the dust. She wouldn't have lasted. Look at Mary Queen of Scots. Sexual immorality brought her down.
But I mean, how close do you think she did get to, say, marrying Dudley?
I think she played the game. I think she affected to be close to it, but she knew inside that she wasn't going to do it.
Really?
That's what it looks like, yes. She got ever so close to it. She even got the Spanish ambassador, who was a bishop, to actually say he'd marry them on a barge one evening, and Dudley got all excited and that,
Really?
Oh yeah, she knew how to keep him on the string.
And you've been passionate about the Elizabethan
since the mid-60s.
Why is that?
Because it's a dynamic era, because she's a wonderful character. It's not just the Elizabethan era, it's the whole Tudor era, and it's the first era in which we've got wonderful documentary evidence of the private lives of monarchs. We've got a great visual record in portraits, in palaces, the magnificence of the age, and it's an age of great colour, of tragedy and turbulence, and in the religious conflict, it's an age without parallel in our history.
I mean, and over the years of writing, have you grown attached to Elizabeth? Do you like her?
Yes, I do, but when I do write about her historically, then I do step back. I've got to look at her objectively. She allowed her soldiers to starve in the streets after the Armada, so you could criticise her, but I was stressing more of the positive, trying to paint a character portrait of her. She wasn't all good, I can tell you that, but there was a lot to like about her.
And lastly, before you go, what are your thoughts on the festival?
Wonderful!
Yeah?
It's great. This is going to be up with Cheltenham and Edinburgh and the Greats. I mean, it already is.
Alison,
fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
An area of history I don't think I'll ever get bored of. Many thanks to Alison for her words there, and apologies for the background wind. There's really no getting away from the blustery start to CVHF. So, only 3 days remain of this year's festival, but what historical treats await? Tomorrow's stellar lineup include Ian and Victoria Hislop, Michael Wood and Adam Nicholson, whilst we will also be deciding who the greatest Briton of all time should be. Will it be William Shakespeare, Alfred the Great, Winston Churchill, Charles Darwin or Elizabeth I? Chalke Valley shall decide. In the meantime, you can spend your time wisely by browsing the Chalke Valley website, as photos and reviews from the festival are all online now. Go online at cvhf.org.uk. So, thanks again for listening to our podcast tonight. I have been Xander Drury, and until tomorrow, good night.